Hello and welcome to this edition of Assembly Calendar. I'm your host, Matt Vischer. Our guest today is New York State Assemblyman Pete Lopez, who represents the 102nd Assembly District, which encompasses the Mid-Hudson, Northern Catskills, Southern Tier, and Capital District regions of New York. Thank you very much for joining us today for this edition of Assembly Calendar. Always a pleasure to see you,
My
Assemblyman
pleasure.
Lopez.
Thank you so much.
A busy time here in Albany.
It is, and for many reasons. So we have some issues that are traditional and go with the territory, so to speak, with the normal rhythm of budget and session. And then we have other issues that are not traditional and have made our jobs more complex, more sensitive in many ways. So we have issues as we came into budget, into session. We had issues with ethics and concerns with leadership and loss of public trust. We have issues with trying to address other issues that have been with us for many years, Common Core, for example, and teacher evaluation. So a number of things that are have carried over, some things that are new into the arena, and then the traditional flow rhythm of session.
Well, let's talk about legislative leadership.
Yes, please.
Ethics reform. I know the Assembly Republican Conference has been at the forefront of attempting to make changes to the way the legislative process occurs in Albany, which has been mediated by the fact that, I should say prompted by this this condensation, if you will, the condensing of power by legislative leaders. And we've seen what happened and how that's played out.
We have, and it's interesting, as you look at the organizational structure of the legislature, people are baffled. It doesn't function like any other institution you can think of, public agencies and other governmental entities. The operational structure is more like the feudal era. So someone comes in and they work for a member. So they swear fealty to their lord, all right? And then their lord, the barons and nobles and kings, that's how some of these folks even view themselves. It's hilarious. And then those lords or nobles swear fealty to the king. And the king rules with absolute power. And no one questions the king.
Right.
And if you question the king, then it's off with your head, or you're exiled, thrown out of the kingdom. And so it's to me, the most frustrating part is all of that works against true democracy. All of that works against the reasons why we're here. I've had people say to me, you don't do anything without going through me first. And my honest answer is, I'm not here for you. I'm here for my people.
All right.
I'm here to represent them and represent their interests and concerns.
This is a representative republic.
It is. And so ultimately, the challenge we have is we have the expectation of the public, their views, their belief, their hopes for the process of intelligence and rational decision-making and grassroots policy-driven government crashing headlong into this feudal system, and it's dysfunctional, and it has to stop.
One of the issues is attempting to get good, sound pieces of legislation that would have a positive impact on New Yorkers.
Sure.
To the Assembly floor for a vote.
That's right.
And in an effort to make some of this happen, because as it stands currently, the process is held up by the Assembly Speaker, is it not?
In the Assembly, and in the Senate would be the President of the Senate. And again, it gets back to the issue of centralization of power. So despite what rank and file, despite what numbers of people may say, majority, a clear, simple majority, regardless of politics, if a majority of members support, there's still this behind-the-scenes veto power, which it's indefensible. And so for us to attack the issues here, we have to dismantle the concentration of power with the leadership. That has to happen.
So a colleague of yours, Jim Tedisco, has introduced legislation.
He has. I'm a co-sponsor.
You're a co-sponsor.
Yeah, I am.
Titled The Spirit of 76.
Jimmy's good with titles, but it has good meaning.
Which
really
is
carries.
in the spirit of the Revolution of 1776, which was so prominent in the history of our country. And basically, what this legislation says is that there would be a need or a requirement of at least 76 members to be on board to bring legislation to the floor of a vote.
And so the translation, and again, Assemblyman Tedisco, he's very good with phrasing and capturing sentiment. 76 is significant with the legislation because 76 represents the number of members of the Assembly required to pass the bill on the floor. So again, spirit of 76, we took on that mantle because what it talks about is, yes, it talks about the freedom of members to reach a simple majority of votes, 76 members, to say yes, no matter what the leadership says. If 76 of us say we want the bill on the floor for a vote, put it on the floor. And to me, it's one of the perfect responses to breaking the logjam and this stranglehold of leadership over the members.
Well, there was a press conference held recently in which you attended, and you spoke on the spirit of 76. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll come back and discuss and further detail with Assemblyman Pete Lopez.
What we're talking about is an institutional problem. I'm just going to give you, as we shine the light of day on this subject, when you think about institutions, you think about management structure. Well, the best parallel to the structure in this building is the feudal era. The king of so-and-so, the earl of so-and-so, the duke of so-and-so. You swear fealty to your lord, unwavering loyalty. And so the issue of independent thought, of independent action, of representing your people is lost in the translation. You can have a conversation with any one of our colleagues, regardless of party, on key issues that matter to families and homes and communities. But yet, when they walk into that chamber, they become locked, particularly in the majority, they become locked into the position that the leadership dictates for them. So as we talked about getting a bill to the floor, once the bill is at the floor, this provides insights on the other side of the equation. Once the bill is on the floor, the leadership has determined that the bill will pass. So many of my colleagues who may not really be interested in supporting a bill are coerced into supporting a bill. So as we're trying to get a bill to the floor, there are others who are chained to their seats, having to vote for a bill. And if they don't, excessive pressure is applied to them to vote for it. I had a friend who had voted against a bill that would have hurt farm families, a Democratic friend from an inner city. And I went to thank him for his vote of conscience. And he said to me, Pete, don't thank me. He said, the next day the leadership came to me, said, if you do that again, we're going to primary you and take you out of office.
So the Assembly Republican Conference represents an estimated 5 million New Yorkers.
Correct.
And if this is a representative republic, and you can't represent based on the fact that there's too much power within the Assembly, there needs something needs to change.
And I would say to you again, it's irrespective of party. So for my colleagues, regardless of their party, if they're being dictated to and told how to vote, they are powerless. They're being told what to do for fear of losing their jobs. What we're saying is throw that fear away. We're not interested in being yoked.
Right.
We're interested in being individuals who speak our minds, bring the messages from our constituents, push for what we feel is in the best interests of our region and the state. That's what we're after. So the politics of it really disappear when you look at the need of the individual member to represent their people as to the best of their ability. And so this bill, again, said regardless of your politics, if 76 members say we want the bill on the floor, it's going to go to the floor for an up or down vote. It may not pass, but at least we take away that power. We begin to dismantle the grip of leadership over everybody, which is destructive.
Along the same lines, you introduced a rules change proposal.
Yes.
As it relates to electronic voting.
Very simple, very straightforward.
So let's go ahead and roll that.
Sure.
And we'll come back and discuss.
Sounds good.
We live in an ever-evolving digital and social media age, and our constituents expect their elected officials to keep them informed about how they voted on a particular bill or resolution in real time. This amendment would simply require that the roll call on each amendment to a bill or resolution offered and considered by the House would be made available in electronic format on LRS within 24 hours of the vote. Currently, paper copies of the roll call can be requested. However, living in an electronic age, the public expects information to be available on the internet. And in the interest of transparency in our legislative activities, we request this change. Just additionally, Mr. Speaker, the series of reforms that we're requesting here are common sense. They're straightforward. There's really no reason why these should be turned down vote after vote. And I'm urging my colleagues to support me with this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So rules changes change the procedures of what takes place on the floor.
So within the House, there are any number of procedures. This one is just saying when there's a vote, get it out to the public, get it out as quickly as possible. So internally, we're also pushing to make sure that the institution is as representative and as available to the public as possible. And my belief is the more knowledge people have, the more power they have, the better able they are to help guide us as we do our job.
The budget process is underway in
Yes.
Albany. Budget hearings are being held in Albany. Among the hearings in which you attended was the agricultural hearing.
Yes.
And you presented to the Agricultural Commissioner, Richard Ball, a series of questions. One of those questions you asked of him was your concern for the drop in milk prices.
Correct.
And that impact on local farmers. So
Right.
let's go ahead and roll his response.
Sounds good.
And we'll come back and get your response to his response.
Thank you.
This past year, the challenge has been more of a supply and demand issue, which is kind of unique, where we had coming off a record year of pricing and a record year of volume. And unfortunately, the rest of the world had a record year as well. We saw our export market drop by about 3%, not because of New York, but because our dollar is strong in the United States, because the EU had a big year in dairy, because New Zealand had a big year in dairy, because the Chinese bought less. And so we had a supply and demand issue which drove price down. I think that long term, I'm encouraged. For the most part, supply and demand has kind of righted itself. There are still challenges cropping up across the state with challenges with getting milk sold. But by and large, now it's a price issue. The price is low, kind of a hangover from all of that. I do think that our prognosis is excellent in the state because we continue to make a lot of yogurt, we continue to make a lot of cheese, we continue to make a lot of powder, we continue to move a lot of fluid milk. Fluid milk is kind of leveled off, and maybe even retreating a little bit, but the others are doing quite well.
Good for the consumer, not so good for farmers.
So farmers are price takers, and so you have consumers and their needs on one side, you have the industry that processes and their needs, and then you have farmers. And so this whole discussion, just to cap it, was about agriculture and the promise of agriculture for New York. So our key to making our family farms successful is to give them a good framework to be economically viable. So this is just one illustration. Dairy is about 60% of the state, but we talked about many other issues. This was just a snapshot.
And with about a minute to go in terms of energy as it relates to farmers?
Well, the premise is farmers will tell you two things about their viability. Price of their product, i.e. the milk price, and the cost of their inputs. So if you ask them about it, they'll say energy, cost of feed, cost of care for the animals, manure handling, pesticide, herbicide, other things. So they'll talk about energy as an important part of the mix. So the goal is control and reduce input costs and raise profitability, their price,
Right.
and our family farms prosper, and we prosper as a society.
Very good.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to see
Pleasure,
you,
yeah.
Assemblyman Pete Lopez. If
Thank
you'd like
you.
to reach out to the Assemblyman, you can do so by contacting his district office. The information is on the screen there. 45 Mile Woods Road, Suite 3, that's in Catskill, 943-1371. You can also reach out to him at Park Place, Suite 4, that's in Schoharie, 295-7250. The Assemblyman is also available on Facebook. And you can email him as well, lopezp@assembly.state.ny.us. Thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Assembly Calendar. Until next time, I'm Ed Vischer. Take care.